Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Tian and I am a product manager at Ava Labs and we're focused on digitizing the world's assets. And today I'm here to talk about the advent of custom blockchains known as Avalanche Subnets. But first, let's talk about what even is a custom blockchain and why would you want one? So let's take a step back and think about blockchains in general. So blockchains are open, decentralized, and they enable the transfer of ownership of unique digital items. But the thing is, in today's society with our current blockchain systems, they're not super scalable. Bitcoin, for example, has low throughput. So on average, transactions go through 7 every second. Ethereum is expensive. Gas fees are high. It can cost as much as $30 for a simple swap. And blockchains right now are all open and permissionless. So anyone can see the information and transactions on the ledger. And that's great for some use cases, but not all. Financial institutions, for example, might want a more permissioned environment, like we've heard already today. And so that's where these custom blockchains come in. That financial institution, for example, could create their own industry-specific blockchain, their own sovereign network, we've heard a bit about this already, and their own custom rule sets. This financial institution could have their own independent chain that's protected from high gas fees, and it can have KYC controls in place where the validators or participants are all KYC'd. It can also add privacy controls, so controlling the visibility of who can see all the transactions. And this financial institution could even add their own compliance frameworks, whatever they desire. So now we know what custom blockchains are, let's talk a little bit about what is Avalanche. Avalanche is a network of blockchains. So not just a single blockchain, but many different blockchains. And we currently have over 100 blockchains on mainnet and testnet, and we're capable of scaling to hundreds of thousands of blockchains. And our users know us as fast, customizable, scalable, and affordable. I'm going to be diving in a lot more on the customization piece, but let's talk a little bit about the other items first. So why is Avalanche so fast and affordable? It's because of Avalanche Consensus. This was an algorithm that was built in-house by our distributed systems PhDs and computer science experts. And a consensus algorithm is really just a way for many different participants to come together and agree on something. And Avalanche was a breakthrough technology after classical consensus and Nakamoto consensus. And it uses repeated random subsampling. This is really just a very basic statistics concept, really nothing that fancy. And it involves, instead of asking your whole pool of computers, which can be a lot of computers, to vote, you take a random subset of these computers and ask that subset to vote. Is this block valid or not? And it just so happens that when you do this over and over again enough times, you eventually reach consensus. And this process is much more efficient and faster than some of these others. And that's ultimately how we're able to get sub-second finality, which is how we get transactions confirmed quickly and in an irreversible manner. And it's also how we're able to secure low transaction fees. So now let's talk about the scalability of Avalanche. How does Avalanche achieve scale? And that's something called Avalanche Subnets. This is the framework for building these custom blockchains. And subnets are great at scaling because they have both vertical and horizontal scaling, which is really just a way to make your network more efficient, add participants, and have more volume or throughput. And you can think of, a traditional chain like Ethereum, for example, as a single chain. And you can think of this as one building. And you can scale Ethereum vertically by adding more floors to your building. And that's like layer 2s or roll-ups. But the thing is, you can add a lot of floors and you can see how quickly it gets hard to go up and down that building. Whereas for Avalanche, this is a network of blockchains, so many different blockchains, not just a single one. You can have a really tall skyscraper with many different floors, but you can also have a small house that's, small. That's really cool about Avalanche Subnets, is that it's really customizable. Which brings me to my next slide on custom chains. So what can you actually do with these subnets? And let's talk a little bit more about the parameters that you can toggle. So going back to that financial institution example, you might want certain permissions. You might only want KYC'd participants or KYB'd participants to be your validators or to participate in your network. You might also want privacy controls, so only letting a group, the participants, see the transactions on your chain. You might also want to open it up to regulators and auditors on a need-to-know basis. That's all possible with these Avalanche subnets. Now let's say you're a financial institution who might already be deployed on Ethereum. Well, the good news is that Avalanche is EVM or Ethereum compatible. What that means is that it's super easy to take a project that's already live on Ethereum and move it over to Avalanche as a subnet. And better yet, we're actually VM or virtual machine agnostic, meaning that you can have your own custom application on your own custom software. That's all possible with Avalanche. You can also have your own tokenomics. So if you want, you can create your entirely new blockchain with its own custom gas token, own tokenomics. You can even abstract away the gas fees entirely for users, because some users don't want to deal with these technical nuances of what even is gas and how does that work. And one other thing that's really cool about Avalanche Subnets, we just announced this a few weeks ago, is Avalanche Warp Messaging and Teleporter. This is our native interoperability cross-chain messaging protocol. And it enables any subnet to communicate with any other subnet natively. And what natively means here is that there's no integrations needed. There's no additional trust assumptions. It's all built into the protocol. So I hope that helps you get a picture of what is Avalanche and what are these subnets and custom blockchains. Let's talk a little bit more about use cases. So as I mentioned before, the customization piece is really important because every vertical is going to have their own needs. Financial institution is very different from a gaming company, very different from a healthcare company. You get the gist. And we actually have this really cool product called Ava Cloud. And Ava Cloud is our subnet deployment infrastructure. So think blockchain as a service. And Ava Cloud makes it super easy for anyone, truly anyone, because it's a no-code platform. It's just a few clicks. You can deploy your own subnet. So we've essentially built the framework for your house. You can go build whatever type of house you want. Okay, now let's talk a little bit more about who's actually leveraging Ava Cloud and these subnets. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about Evergreen Subnets, which, going along the themes of financial institutions, I'm going to keep going off of that. But Evergreen Subnets are really just a brand of these custom subnets, and they're specifically designed for financial institutions. How? Because they're permissioned at 3 levels. So that's the validator level, so who can participate in your blockchain. It's the smart contract deployer level, so who can actually deploy these applications on top of your blockchain. And it's also the transactor level, so who are the users that can send messages and participate in your blockchain network. So I'll highlight a few of these. Intane is a structured credit platform, so think mortgage-backed securities, asset-backed securities, and they built their own Avalanche subnet. And they do a few things really well. So Intane was able to abstract away some of the traditional processes like email and Excel by replacing it with blockchain and smart contracts. And this added a lot more efficiency and automation. In fact, it helped investors get access to real-time information, because usually these types of information are more delayed because of the manual processes involved. They were also able to save 100 basis points because of this automation. And that ultimately helped decrease some of the transaction deal minimum sizes from $100 million down to $10 million. This is huge, right? You're opening up the door to many new participants and decreasing that threshold. One other thing I think that's really amazing about Intane is that they're not focused on disintermediation, but on disentanglement. And the idea here and the nuance is really important, I think, because they're not trying to get rid of all these counterparties involved, right? These counterparties involved are usually required by law and for good reason. Instead, Intane is just here to create a unified platform that is very efficient and standardized. And another exciting project, which Marley already, this is kind of a shout out to you, but is our partnership with JP Morgan on the Onyx blockchain. So this was an initiative done by MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and they led something called Project Guardian, which is inclusive of many different industry participants to showcase some of the capabilities of blockchain. And this project was really cool because we were able to create our own Avalanche Subnet that had access to tokenized funds by Wisdom Tree. And this blockchain was able to connect with an entirely different blockchain, so JP Morgan's Onyx blockchain. This is separate from Avalanche. And this project demonstrated, this cross-chain interoperability, so the ability for all these different blockchains to connect. There was another one also involved. And we were able to standardize some processes like redemptions and subscriptions. And we were able to rebalance our portfolios as well. So this really created, a unified platform across a rather fragmented industry with many different funds and participants. And one more project I'll highlight here, also by MAS, is a partnership we did with Citi. So we created 3 subnets, and these subnets had an application that processed price and executed trades for bilateral spot foreign exchange requests. And we were able to get real-time streaming of price quotes and data. And we did so in a secure manner because blockchain is immutable and cryptographically secure. At the same time, we were also able to make sure that we conform to traditional practices. So traditionally, only the participants have information to the underlying trade details. And we were able to continue that permissioned environment for our client. So these are just some examples of the many Evergreen Subnets. And the last example I'll share today is one with SK Planet. So this one's a fun one, not a financial institution. I'll stop there. But SK is one of South Korea's largest conglomerates. And SK has an application called OK Cashback. And OK Cashback is used by over half of South Korea's population. That's more than 20 million people. And what OK Cashback is it's really just a loyalty rewards program that drives spending for its users through these rewards. And you can basically take your reward points and redeem them at over 50,000 stores. So think hotels, restaurants, financial applications, so forth. And OK Cashback launched their own subnet and integrated an NFT project. So their users, basically, if you're a member, you get access to an NFT. And within 48 hours after launch, over 100,000 users signed up. And these users said the process was truly seamless. In fact, many of them actually said they didn't even know blockchain was happening under the hood. The reason being that Avalanche were able to abstract away some of these technical concepts for users, like gas. We were able to create something called a gasless relayer and abstract that away so the users had a gas-free experience. And ultimately, this was beneficial for SK because it improved user engagement and it helped them come up with new revenue streams. And for the users, most importantly, besides the gas-free experience, making it more Web 2-like, is that it had self-sovereign ownership. We keep hearing this phrase, right? Self-sovereign ownership. More than ever, users are really demanding that they own their digital assets. So that's all I had today. Hopefully you learned a little bit more about Avalanche and the subnets and custom blockchains. And I hope it's helpful for you to better understand how efficient and scalable and how we can create processes that are more operationally efficient with these custom blockchains. And ultimately, how we can return some of that ownership into the hands of the original creators and authors. Thank you.